Hello, everybody. My name is Jacob Lemons, and welcome to another episode of LemonTalks. Now, I would like to take a second to apologize. I said that I would get the episode uploaded later in the day, earlier on Facebook. That was because I was changing internet providers, as I said in the post, but then I ran into some technical difficulties. See, I was in the middle of recording the episode, got to the end of the episode, and then my recording device died, out of charge. And so I had to charge up my phone, turn it back on, and find that the recording did not save on the phone. And so this is our third take, and we hope that it is the final one. Now, moving straight into episode 7, we're going to talk about Roseanne. First, as usual, we are going to break up the episode into different parts. We're going to talk about 90s Roseanne, and I'm calling it 90s Roseanne even though it came out in 1988, but it primarily ran through the 90s, and so whenever I refer to it in comparison with the other shows, we will call it 90s Roseanne or Roseanne from the 90s. Why did it end? And then 2018 Roseanne, the reboot. Why did it change from Roseanne to the Connors? And then we'll talk about the Connors. Now, moving right on into 90s Roseanne. The show had a very successful run from 1988 to 1997, a total of 9 seasons in the original run for the series that tackled several issues such as financial struggles for the lower middle class, trying to raise multiple children, infidelity, growing pains within families such as rebellious teens, and children just wanting a little more independence as they grow older. And these were stories that American families could really relate to, and they especially liked watching the show because of the comical, lighthearted, make light of it way that the Connors approached all of these situations. They struggled often, practically every week, every episode, and yet they found a way to smile and joke around with each other and make it through the week. And that inspired a lot of American families. I can say definitely my family was a bit inspired by it whenever we watched the show, to learn how to put a smile on ourselves and our families' faces. Excuse me. But yes, ultimately, they ended up being a beloved family, to say the least. Now, just to give you an insight as to the blue-collarship within this show, Dan, he worked as a contractor or handyman and even a mechanic at one point or another in the show's run, while Roseanne worked as a line worker in a plastics plant, a telemarketer, and even in a couple of restaurants as the family needed in order to get by. Whenever the family was struggling a little extra tough, Roseanne made sure that she was working a job as well as Dan in order to provide for the family. Now, they did all this while making sure that their children got an adequate amount of attention, whether it was through discipline or even comfort during a hard time. And also a little bit of love, let's be honest. But this was why we enjoyed watching the Connors in the original Roseanne, and many people enjoyed watching the Connors in the original Roseanne. Now, why did it end? The show ultimately ended because of Season 8, Episode 24. Season 8, Episode 24 saw a heart attack for the father of the family, Dan Connor. This heart attack came at Darlene's wedding, which is one of their daughters, and many people didn't know if he would actually survive it or not. They just knew that he was hospitalized and in bad health at the end of Season 8 and weren't sure if he was going to survive this. And this information comes from Rebecca Sargent at ScreenRant.com, and may I just take a minute to break away from this for a second and talk about the research aspect for a second. Finding this information was a lot harder than it looks. See, I was originally just looking for how the show got canceled. Like in every search engine that I was using, how was the original Roseanne canceled? What what made the original Roseanne go off the air, all of this. I ended up finding it in a random list put together of different retcons of famously disliked moments in shows, which was written by Rebecca. And that is where I found the primary reason for why the original run of Roseanne came to an end with season 9. And that's because when Dan Connor had his heart attack, he survived. He survived, and he was there with them through season 9. And season 9 also saw the Connors do something that they don't normally do, and that's get lucky and make a lot of money. They won the lottery at the beginning of season 9, giving them $100 million as a family, so that way they could settle up any debts that they had. They could send the children to college. Basically, any stress, any financial stress that was there was now gone. But unfortunately, that was what made them interesting to their target audience. There was no more financial struggle. There was no more fighting or bickering that had more weight to it because the family was in hard times, had fallen on hard times. So the target audience had lost interest for that reason, primarily. But we also saw a couple of other major events happen in this season. We saw Darlene have her first child, so Roseanne and Dan got to become grandparents, and we saw DJ experience love for the first time, and so we got to see a sort of coming-of-age moment for him where he realized that having these feelings for a girl isn't so bad. However, we didn't actually see all of these events take place, and that's because in the final episode of season 9, they decided that this was all a figment of Roseanne's imagination, that she had been writing a book because Dan actually did die that night in the hospital from a heart attack at Darlene's wedding, and that season 9 was Roseanne making up all of these stories that they had went through, that they had won the lottery, but that was a fantasy that they had always had. So that they had won the lottery and they were going through all these happy-go-lucky things, but it was all not true. It was Roseanne's way of coping with Dan's death. Unfortunately, there were a lot of people that did not like this, a lot of fans that didn't appreciate being had for the entirety of season 9. I mean, if you think about it, this is the 90s. We don't have streaming services back then the way that we do now, and so dedicated fans to the show were watching every week, waiting for a new episode to come out every week. And so to get to the very end of season 9 and be delivered this news, it's kind of crushing. You know, you just gave up nearly 3 months of your life to this show, and then it just tells you that all that was fake, never happened, so just disregard that. I can understand the frustration, certainly. However, there may have been another element to this, and I just want to tell you that this information I found in a chat room on Reddit. So take this as you like, but I do believe that there is some information that was provided that adds up to the story, at least a little bit. So again, do not take this as official information. That's why I didn't cite exactly who is saying what in the chat room. But they basically reminded everybody that Roseanne's real life husband, so Roseanne Barr, who played Roseanne Connor in the show, her real life husband, Tom Arnold, was added to the writer's room at one point in the show, was made a writer on the show, got credits and everything. You can look it up if you like. But he demanded that the show be written in favor of Roseanne's character, that she would get the witty comebacks or the sassy snapbacks, or even just the good storylines, that all of this was going to Roseanne in order to enhance her character and make her character the most interesting to viewers at home. And it really shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that cutthroat as to try to vouch for somebody to get better placement on the show. Of any show that you do in Hollywood, but unfortunately that's the world that they live in. many of them realized that based on the success of their show, it could launch them into other projects and give them a fame that could bleed into other parts of the industry. And so Roseanne was capitalizing on that and definitely used the show to stay relevant for quite some time. Many believe that this led the writers that were on the show with Tom to not be as passionate about writing the show and eventually petitioning internally for Tom to be removed from the writing staff, only to be met with threats that Roseanne would leave the show if that were ever to happen. Now, I can't confirm whether or not this is true, as I was not sitting in those meetings. However, many believe that this was the case. Again, this is just a chat room on Reddit, and so all of it's speculation because nobody was there experiencing it with any of those people. And the only way to truly know is to ask the people who were involved. Now, moving on to 2018 Roseanne. I got all of this information from Ellis Clopton at Variety.com. Roseanne was eventually brought back and even renewed for a second season because of the success that it saw. They had the original cast members involved, and they were as relatable as the Connors in season 1 through 8. All because Dan found the book that Roseanne was writing in at the end of season 9 in the first episode of season 10, and it was explained that he had survived his heart attack, but was living in an assisted living home or a nursing home where Roseanne would secretly visit him. Now, supposedly they'd solved all of their problems of the past. Now, season 9 didn't exist, but that's okay because Dan's back. We have Dan Connor. And honestly, I like the fix. However, Roseanne would be fired from the show and her character written off with an opioid overdose after an online interaction with one of Barack Obama's former aides, Valerie Jarrett. Essentially, the online interaction showed Roseanne saying that she was an offspring of the Muslim Brotherhood and Planet of the Apes, that Valerie Jarrett was that. Now, this is an extremely derogatory, not to mention racist statement to make, so the network showed that they have zero tolerance for it by getting rid of the character and firing Roseanne Barr from the show effective immediately. This left fans scrambling, wondering what's going to happen. Roseanne was really good. It was a really good show, and it came back, and it's only been on for one season. What the heck? I mean, we know what the heck, but what the heck? Never fear, the Connors are here. They ended up changing the name of the show from Roseanne to The Connors, with the explanation of Roseanne's death being in The Connors. The information that I am about to read off to you, some of it comes from Cathal Gunning at ScreenRant.com. The show was actually brought back a little more to its roots. A little bit better than the first season there, of season 10 of Roseanne. The Connors, now with the loss of Roseanne Connor, the family was truly struggling in the way that it did in seasons 1 through 8, where they were staring at a pile of bills with that seemed to never end, and also were trying to live off of very little income now that they didn't have Roseanne there to provide as well. The Connors have done well with viewership, even opening them up to newer characters and exploring the Dan character without Roseanne. Dan even gets remarried in season 4, which sparked discussions of just how long we would see this spin-off go for. And yeah, The Connors is technically a spin-off because of the name change, but given the nature of the show, which is that it takes place in the same setting and also has the same characters involved in the storylines, it falls and classifies as a reboot. Falls under and classifies as a reboot. So we're just looking at the move from Roseanne to The Connors as a name change rather than calling it a spin-off for the sake of our study series, even though that is technically what it is. However, It has just been said that Season 7 will be the final season of The Conners, and it will be available on the ABC network March 26th. This season will be a short 6-episode season, and is simply going to give us the happy endings for The Conners that the fans want to see, because they simply don't have any more interesting storylines that would compel the viewer, let alone the cast, to keep on going forward with the show. In conclusion, we can see that both the original and the reboot have had their fair share of success. If it weren't for a costly mistake made by Roseanne, then perhaps they would have had more to write than just 7 seasons. Or maybe 7 seasons was always going to be their limit. We'll never know. But what I can say confidently is that this is a reboot that was necessary. Seeing the disappointment and even anger in some cases at the way the original series had ended, it was great to see that the cast could see more fulfilling ends to their characters. In most cases anyway, you know, an opioid overdose, not the best way for your character to go. So just to take a quick tally of reboots that were successful and necessary and those that weren't, we have the score dead even at 1-1. If you would like to know why Fuller House didn't work as well as a reboot, please check out episode 6 on this page. Please let me know your thoughts, opinions, or even suggestions for the next reboot that we should analyze together, and I will consider each and every one of them. Now, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day.